It was a quiet night in the forest. The sky was clear, and stars filled the darkness above. Ethan Reed, a young forest ranger, sat inside his wooden cabin. The place was far from the city, deep in the wild mountains. He enjoyed the peace and calm that came with his job, but that night something strange happened. Around midnight, Ethan heard a loud boom. It shook the ground slightly, like a small earthquake. He jumped up, grabbed his flashlight, and stepped outside. A bright flash had lit up the sky just before the noise. At first, he thought it might be a meteor, but then he saw something even stranger. A thin trail of smoke rising far off in the valley. His heart started to beat faster. He had seen many things in nature, but this was different. He picked up his backpack, first aid kit, radio, and survival gear. Then he started walking quickly toward the smoke. The forest was dense, and the trail was rough. He had to use his flashlight to avoid tree roots and slippery rocks. After walking for over an hour, he reached a ridge. Below him was a deep valley, and in the middle of it he saw something shiny and broken, a crash site. He carefully climbed down toward it. When he arrived, he was surprised. The object was not like any plane or helicopter he had ever seen. It was smooth, round, and glowing faintly blue. The crash had burned the trees nearby, but the main body of the ship was still whole. Then he saw her. A girl, or at least she, looked like one, was lying near the wreck. Her body was covered in cuts and bruises, and her leg looked broken. She had long silver hair, and her skin was pale with a strange shimmer. Her clothes looked metallic and futuristic. For a moment, Ethan just stared. She didn't look like she was from Earth. Still, he was a ranger, and it was his duty to help anyone in need. He knelt beside her and checked for signs of life. Her pulse was weak, but she was breathing. She was alive. "Can you hear me?" he asked softly. Her eyes fluttered open. They were bright violet and filled with pain. She tried to speak, but only strange, soft sounds came out. Ethan couldn't understand her, but he saw the fear in her face. She was scared and hurt. "You're okay now," he whispered, trying to calm her. "I'll help you, just hold on." He looked around. There was no way a helicopter could reach this deep part of the forest tonight. No roads, no phone signal. He had only one choice: carry her back to the ranger station on foot. It was more than 20 miles away. Carefully, he wrapped her in a blanket from his backpack. Then he lifted her onto his back. She was light, but the path ahead was long and hard. The moment he stood up with her, she let out a small groan of pain. But soon, she fell unconscious again. Ethan started walking through the dark forest. The trees around him seemed quiet, too quiet. There were no sounds of animals or birds. Even the wind had stopped. It was as if the forest itself was watching him. As he moved forward, strange things started happening. His flashlight flickered, his compass spun in circles. Once, he thought he saw something moving quickly between the trees, something tall and fast. But when he looked again, it was gone. Still, he didn't stop. Hour after hour, he walked with her on his back. His shoulders hurt, his legs were shaking, and sweat covered his body. But he didn't let go. Every now and then, she would stir or whisper in that strange language. Her skin felt warm, almost like it had its own energy. By the time the sun started to rise, Ethan had already covered more than half the distance. He stopped only for a moment to drink water and rest his back. The girl was still breathing, but her face looked pale. He spoke to her even though he knew she didn't understand. "You're going to be okay," he said softly. "We're almost there." He kept walking. The trail became steeper as he climbed a rocky hill. His feet slipped once and he almost fell, but he quickly caught himself to protect her. A few more miles, just a few more. When he finally saw the ranger station in the distance, his eyes filled with relief. He picked up his pace. As soon as he reached the cabin, he carefully laid her on his bed and grabbed the radio. "This is Ranger Ethan. Emergency. I need medical assistance. Unknown injured person. Critical condition. Repeat. Critical condition." He gave his location and waited. The girl was unconscious again, her chest rising and falling slowly. He sat beside her, watching, wondering who she really was. About 20 minutes later, a helicopter appeared. But it wasn't the normal Forest Service helicopter. This one was black and had no markings. 3 people in black suits came out quickly and entered the cabin. They didn't ask many questions. They checked her, nodded to each other, and carried her out. One of them turned to Ethan. "Thank you for your help," the man said. "This matter is now classified. You'll be contacted soon." Then they left. Just like that, the girl was gone. Ethan stood there, confused and tired. He didn't know who she was or what had crashed, but deep inside, he felt that this was not the end. It was only the beginning. Ethan couldn't stop thinking about the girl he had carried through the forest. The way her skin shimmered in the moonlight, the strange violet color of her eyes, the soft musical words she had spoken, words he didn't understand, and most of all, the fear in her eyes when she had briefly opened them. He had helped people before, hikers who broke their legs, campers who got lost, even a boy who got bitten by a snake. But this had been different. This girl was not from Earth. Ethan was sure of it. And yet, she was very real, very alive, and now, very gone. Since the black helicopter took her away, everything had gone quiet, too quiet. No one called him to ask what happened. The radio stayed, silent. The forest, which usually gave him peace, now felt like it was holding its breath. Every little sound made him look over his shoulder. Every rustle in the trees made him wonder if someone, or something, was watching him. 3 days later, 2 men in suits came to his cabin. They arrived in a dark SUV, not a ranger vehicle. Ethan met them on the porch. "Mr. Reed," one of them said, "we need to talk." They showed him official-looking IDs, but Ethan didn't recognize the agency names. It didn't matter. He already knew this wasn't about forests or wildlife. Inside, they sat down and asked him to explain what he saw. He told them everything, how he found the crash, how he carried the girl, and what he saw along the way. He didn't lie, but he didn't add anything extra either. He watched their faces as he spoke, but they didn't show much emotion. When he finished, one of the agents pulled out a document and slid it across the table. "This is a non-disclosure agreement," the agent said. "You are not allowed to speak about this event to anyone. Not your friends, not your family, not even other rangers. You'll sign here." Ethan looked down at the paper. The words were full of legal terms, but the meaning was clear: stay quiet, or there would be consequences. He looked back at the man and said calmly, "No, I'm not signing that." The agent's eyes narrowed. "You do understand the seriousness of this, Mr. Reed?" "Yes," Ethan said. "I also understand that I helped save someone's life. I don't know who she is or what she is, but she was hurt, and I helped her. You're not going to make me feel guilty about that." The 2 men stared at him for a long moment. Then one of them folded the paper, put it back in his folder, and stood up. "This conversation never happened," he said coldly. Then they left. After that, Ethan knew his life wouldn't be normal again. Days passed. He continued doing his work, checking trails, watching wildlife, helping lost hikers, but the feeling never left, the feeling that he was being watched. He noticed drones flying quietly over the forest. He saw tire tracks near his cabin that weren't there the day before. Once he came back from patrol to find his door slightly open, even though he always locked it. Then one evening, as the sun dipped behind the mountains, something unbelievable happened. Ethan was sitting on the porch with a cup of coffee when he saw a soft blue light in the trees. At first, he thought it was just a trick of the sunset, but the light grew brighter, and then he saw her, walking slowly through the trees. It was her, the girl from the crash. Only this time, she was standing, tall and walking with confidence. Her wounds were gone. Her silver hair shimmered in the fading light. She wore a different outfit now, tight, elegant, and glowing with faint patterns that looked like stars. But her eyes were still the same. Violet, deep, mysterious. Ethan stood up, shocked. You're okay, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. She smiled, just a little. You carried me, she said softly. Her voice had an accent, but the words were clear. You speak English now? He asked, amazed. I learned, she said. Quickly, I had to see you again. He didn't know what to say. A dozen questions rushed through his mind, but he couldn't decide which to ask first. So he said the simplest one. Who are you? She stepped closer. My name is Zayla. I am not from this world. I come from a place far beyond your stars. My ship was brought down by those who fear peace. I was meant to die in that crash. But you saved me. Ethan blinked, trying to take it all in. Why were you here in the first place? Zayla looked away for a moment, her face serious. I came as a messenger. My people wanted to learn if your world was ready for contact. I came in secret, but not everyone agreed. Some of my own kind believe humans are dangerous. They sabotaged my ship. Ethan frowned. And the people who took you? The ones in black? They are your government's secret agents, she said. They knew something had landed. They've been watching the sky for years. But they don't trust outsiders. When they took me, I healed quickly, but I escaped before they could study me. He looked at her closely. Why come back here? Why risk it? She stepped forward, her voice soft. Because you carried me when I was weak. You didn't ask who I was. You didn't run. You didn't leave me behind. You showed kindness when I expected fear. I had to see you again. For a long moment, they stood in silence. The forest around them seemed to listen. Ethan finally said, I don't know what happens next. Neither do I, she replied. But we don't have much time. Others will come. Not all of them will be peaceful. And now, they know about you. Ethan looked up at the stars. The quiet forest didn't feel so empty anymore. Something big was coming, but right now, one thing was certain. He wasn't alone. For the next few days, Ethan kept Zayla hidden in his cabin. He knew it was dangerous, but he couldn't turn her away. She had nowhere else to go, and she had trusted him. They stayed quiet, keeping the lights low at night and listening for the sound of engines in the distance. During the day, Ethan taught her more English. She learned fast, faster than any normal human could. She told him that her people had advanced minds. Learning new languages, even by listening for a short time, was easy for them. At night, they sat on the porch and looked at the stars. Zayla would name each one, calling them by names Ethan had never heard before. She pointed to one and said, That's where I'm from. It looks small from here, but it's full of light. My home. Ethan asked, Do you miss it? She nodded slowly. Yes, but it's not safe for me there anymore. I've broken rules. Some of my own people think I betrayed them just by talking to you. Ethan couldn't understand how kindness could be a crime. You didn't betray anyone, he said. You survived, and you came back. Zayla smiled gently. Because of you. Their connection grew stronger with each passing day. They shared stories, thoughts, and even fears. Ethan told her about his life before being a ranger, his time in the army, his family back home, and how he came to live in the mountains. He had always felt like he didn't belong in the city, like something was missing. Now, with Zayla, that feeling had faded, but peace didn't last long. One evening, just before sunset, Ethan spotted something strange. A black drone hovered silently over the trees. It wasn't one of the regular patrol drones used by forest rangers. It had no lights, no markings. It hovered for a few seconds, then flew off fast, disappearing into the sky. Zayla's face grew pale when he told her. "They've found us," she whispered. That night, they didn't sleep. Zayla placed a small crystal on the table. It lit up with a soft blue light and made a quiet humming sound. "What is that?" Ethan asked. "Signal blocker," she said. "It hides us from their machines for a short time, but not forever." Ethan felt a deep worry growing in his chest. "How many people are looking for you?" "Not just people," Zayla said softly. "My own kind, and yours. I don't know who will reach us first." The next morning, they left the cabin. Ethan packed food, water, camping gear, and his rifle. Zayla wore a cloak with a hood that covered her hair and eyes. They walked into the forest, deeper than Ethan had ever gone before. He knew places with no trails, no cameras, no visitors, places where satellites couldn't easily see through the thick trees. For days, they hid there, living in silence, cooking by campfire, sleeping in shifts, watching the skies. Then, one morning, Zayla woke Ethan up. Her face was filled with fear, but not for herself. "I feel strange," she said quietly, pressing her hand to her chest. "Something is happening inside me." Ethan looked at her with concern. "Are you hurt?" "No," she said slowly. "Not hurt, just different." She sat down, breathing heavily. Her hands were shaking. A warm glow started to pulse from under her skin. Ethan didn't know what to do. "Should I call someone?" "Get help?" "No!" Zayla shouted, panicked. "They will find us! You don't understand. I think I'm pregnant." The words hit Ethan like a wave. He froze. "What?" She looked at him with wide eyes. "It's yours!" Ethan sat down beside her, unable to speak at first. "But how? I mean, we didn't—" Zayla nodded. "It wasn't like your people. My kind can connect in different ways. The bond we made, when you carried me, when you stayed close, when we shared our thoughts and energy. Something happened. A life was created." Ethan tried to breathe slowly. It was too much to take in. An alien princess, on the run, and now she was carrying his child? He looked into her eyes. She was scared, confused, and so very real. "What does this mean?" he asked. Zayla replied quietly, "My people would call it a crime. Yours would call it impossible. But it's happening, and we must protect it." From that moment on, Ethan stopped thinking of just surviving. Now he was protecting a future, something more important than either of them. But trouble wasn't far behind. One evening, they heard sounds in the distance, engines, voices, the crack of branches under boots. Someone was searching for them, and, getting closer, they had to keep moving. Zayla grew weaker each day. Her body was changing quickly, faster than any normal pregnancy would happen. She needed rest, but there was no time. Ethan carried her again, this time not for 20 miles, but through endless thick forest. He didn't sleep. He didn't stop. Once they reached a hilltop where the trees cleared. From there, they saw something terrifying. 2 ships hovering in the sky. One was dark gray, shaped like a knife. The other glowed blue. Zayla looked up and whispered, "My people and my enemies, both are here." Ethan knew they couldn't run forever. They needed help, but not from the government, and not from aliens who wanted Zayla gone. "Is there anyone who would protect us?" he asked her. She nodded slowly. "There is a group, neutral beings, peacekeepers. I can try to contact them, but it takes a special place, one with power. Where? She looked east. A mountain with crystal caves. I saw it from the sky before the crash. We must go there. Ethan didn't argue. He lifted her gently, placed her on his back once again, and started walking toward the unknown. This time. It wasn't just about helping a stranger. It was about saving a life not yet born, and maybe the hope of peace between two worlds. Ethan walked through the forest with Zayla on his back. Her head rested gently against his shoulder, and her breathing was soft but weak. The wind blew quietly through the trees, but Ethan couldn't hear the birds anymore. The forest was silent. It felt like the world was watching them, holding its breath. They had one goal now: reach the mountain with the crystal caves. Zayla believed it was a place where she could call the peacekeepers, neutral beings from her world who did not want war. It was their only chance. Both Earth's secret agents and her alien enemies were closing in. The journey was hard. Zayla's body was changing fast. She was growing more tired every day. Sometimes she couldn't walk at all. Her energy glowed faintly through her skin, especially when she touched her stomach. Something inside her was growing, and it was not just any child. It was a life made from two different worlds. Ethan tried to stay strong, but worry filled his heart. He kept thinking, what if they were caught? What if Zayla didn't survive? What if the child was taken from them? Still he walked, through thick forests, cold streams, and up steep rocky hills. Every night, he made a small fire and kept watch while she slept. Every morning, he checked the sky for drones or ships. Then, on the fourth day, they reached the base of the mountain. It rose tall and silent, covered in mist and sharp rocks. It looked like a giant made of stone, standing guard over something secret. "This is it," Zayla whispered. "The caves are near the top. They hold energy crystals from deep inside the earth. If I stand among them, I can send a signal to the peacekeepers." Ethan nodded. "We'll get there." The climb was the hardest part yet. The path was narrow and slippery. Ethan had to carry her most of the way. His arms and legs burned with pain, but he didn't stop. Not even once. At last, they reached a wide cave opening hidden behind thick vines. Inside, the walls glowed with soft blue light. The crystals were everywhere, growing from the ground, the walls, and even the ceiling. It looked like a cave made of stars. Zayla touched one of the crystals and closed her eyes. A wave of energy filled the air. Ethan felt it too, like the hum of a deep song playing all around them. The crystals responded to her. They lit up brighter and brighter until the whole cave sparkled. "I'm sending the call," she whispered. "They will hear me, if it's not too late." Ethan stood beside her, watching her closely. She was shaking. Her face looked pale, and her hands trembled as they touched the crystal. Suddenly, a loud sound echoed through the mountains. A deep, rumbling noise, like thunder, but closer. Ethan rushed to the mouth of the cave and looked out. His eyes widened in fear. Two ships were landing in the valley below. One was dark and sharp, clearly not from Earth. The other had no wings. No lights, just smooth black metal. Both were enemy ships. "They're here," Ethan said. "Both sides." Zayla opened her eyes, alarmed. "They will fight. They won't care about the child. They will destroy everything to stop me." Ethan grabbed his rifle. "I won't let that happen." But he knew he couldn't fight spaceships with a simple weapon. All he could do was delay them, or trust that help would come. A few minutes later, the sound of footsteps echoed through the cave. Ethan stood in front of Zayla, ready to protect her with his life. He saw shadows moving. Then, a group of armed men stepped into the cave. Earth agents, dressed in black, holding weapons. "Step away from the alien," the lead agent said. Ethan didn't move. "She's not a threat. She's not your enemy. She's carrying a hybrid," the agent said coldly. A risk to both worlds. You don't know that, Ethan said. And even if she is, it's not your decision. The agent raised his weapon. But before anything else could happen, a sudden light filled the cave, a beam of silver and gold shining from above. Everyone turned, shielding their eyes. Then 3 figures appeared in the light. They were tall, with smooth silver skin and long robes that moved without wind. Their eyes glowed softly, and they held no weapons. Peacekeepers. Zayla fell to her knees. They heard me. One of the peacekeepers spoke in a voice that sounded like music. This child must not be harmed. It is a new beginning, not a danger. The Yamao, Earth agents hesitated. The peacekeepers raised their hands, and the agents' weapons floated up into the air, pulled by invisible energy, and dropped to the ground. This world has many shadows, the second peacekeeper said, but also light. This man, he pointed to Ethan, chose kindness when he had no reason to. He saved our princess. Ethan looked at Zayla in shock. Princess? Zayla nodded weakly. I didn't want to tell you. I thought, if you knew, you would be afraid. He knelt beside her. I wasn't afraid when I found you. I'm not afraid now. The peacekeepers moved toward them. You cannot stay here, the third one said. They will keep hunting you. Your child will never be safe on Earth. Zayla looked at Ethan. I don't want to leave you behind. Ethan held her hand tightly. Then don't. I'll come with you. The peacekeepers exchanged a look. It will not be easy. You will leave your world forever. Ethan nodded. My world changed the night I found her. I've already left it behind. Zayla smiled through her tears. Then we go together. The peacekeepers surrounded them. The crystals began to glow even brighter. The cave shook with energy. As the light surrounded Ethan and Zayla, the Earth agents stepped back in silence. They knew this was not something they could stop. It was beyond them now. A moment later, the cave was empty. The crystals dimmed. The ships outside lifted into the sky and disappeared. The war that could have started ended without a shot. And far beyond the stars, in a place Ethan had never dreamed he'd see, a new life was about to begin. Ethan felt the soft light all around him, warm and gentle. He opened his eyes slowly and looked around. They were no longer in the crystal cave. Instead, they stood on a ship, large and shining, filled with smooth walls and glowing panels. It was unlike anything Ethan had ever seen on Earth. Beside him, Zayla smiled softly. Her strength was returning, and the glow from her skin was gentler now. The child inside her moved, and Ethan could feel the life growing more real every moment. Group of peaceful-looking aliens stood nearby. They were the peacekeepers Zayla had called for. They greeted Ethan warmly, understanding the weight of his decision. You are far from home, one of them said kindly. But your courage has brought hope to many. Ethan looked at Zayla. Where are we going now? To my world, she replied. A place where we can be safe, where our child can grow without fear. It will be different from Earth. Strange at first, but it will be home. Ethan took a deep breath. He thought about everything he had left behind, his forest cabin, the mountains, his family, but he knew he had made the right choice. I'm ready, he said. The ship lifted smoothly into space, passing through clouds and stars. Ethan watched Earth shrink beneath them until it was a small blue dot. The vastness of space stretched before them, a sea of light and mystery. During the journey, Zayla told Ethan more about her people. They were from a peaceful empire that valued knowledge, art, and harmony. But some factions had grown afraid of outsiders. That fear had caused the crash that brought Zayla to Earth. Ethan listened closely, feeling a new respect for her world. He realized that the child they were expecting could be a symbol of peace between their two worlds, a bridge that could end fear and bring understanding. Days passed, and Ethan learned to live in the ship's strange environment. He met other beings who had come from many planets, all working together to protect peace. Though the language and customs were new to him, he found kindness everywhere. One day, Zayla rested while Ethan looked out a window into the stars. He thought about the future, the child, their life, and the challenges they would face. Suddenly, the ship's alarm sounded softly. Lights blinked gently, and a calm voice spoke over the speakers. "We are approaching the capital city of the Empire. Prepare for arrival." Ethan felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness. What would her people think of him? Would they accept him as the father of the princess's child? He hoped so. When the ship landed, a grand city spread out before them. Tall, towers made of crystal and light, gardens that glowed with strange flowers, and peaceful beings walking in harmony. Zayla took his hand and led him through the streets. They reached a beautiful palace where elders awaited them. The elders smiled warmly at Ethan and welcomed him as a hero. They thanked him for saving their princess and promised protection for Zayla and their child. For the first time since the crash, Ethan felt hope. Weeks later, Zayla gave birth to a healthy baby, a child with soft silver hair and bright violet eyes. The child looked human, but Ethan knew there was more to them. They were a symbol of two worlds united. The child grew quickly, learning from both parents and their people. Ethan watched as Zayla's world and Earth slowly started to connect through peace talks and shared knowledge. Ethan knew their journey would not be easy. There would be challenges, doubts, and fears. But with love, courage, and hope, they had started something new, a future where two very different worlds could live together in peace. And it all began with a simple act of kindness, carrying a wounded stranger through a dark forest, not knowing she was a princess from another world.